Have you ever heard this before? Come on, man, hurry up. You're wasting time, and time is money. Well, I'm sure you've heard that probably a time or two growing up. And you've probably also heard about the time value of money as well. But what does that really mean? Well, one of the very first people that actually coined the phrase time is money was somebody by the name of Benjamin Franklin. Now, he had a very lengthy explanation in one of his books that I'm not going to sit here and bore you with. But the main point that Ben was trying to get across was that for every hour you don't work, so if you're on a beach somewhere, you're at your lake house or whatever, and you're not working, it's going to cost you money. All right. Unless you've got assets on the side that are bringing in passive income that can pay for your stuff. Well, I don't know about you, but it seems that good old Ben had it all figured out way back in the 1800s before this entire passive income idea it became popular. Now, if you're new to this channel, I'm Dr. Jeff Anzalone, a periodontist that brings busy professionals what they need to know in order to exit the rat race. Do me a favor, click the link below this video for a free guide to passive income creation that I've put together just for you. Now, let's get into this and let's talk about what exactly is the time value of money. So this entire concept, it really enables you to understand what money is worth compared to your time. Now, this is expressed in a formula which basically states that money is worth more now. Your money in your pocket is worth now more than it will be in the future as time goes by. And this is mainly due to inflation, which right now we're seeing a whole lot of inflation. But as you know, what inflation does, it increases prices over time, but it decreases your dollar spending power. Okay. Now, many of the financial decisions that you're going to make now and in the future are going to involve the importance of this whole concept of the time value of money. Now, a couple examples I'll throw out there. You may be thinking, if you're buying a house, you may be thinking, well, do I take out a 15-year mortgage or a 30-year mortgage? When you buy a car, do you pay for everything up front now, or do you take out and put it on credit? Same thing when you're trying to figure out, do you invest in stocks or, things for the short term versus things more for the longer term, maybe mutual funds, etc. Let me give you a couple of examples of inflation examples, so you kind of get the concept. Now, if depending on when you grew up, I grew up, mainly in the 80s, the mid 80s, but back then you could actually mail a first class stamp for 22 cents. Today, depending on when you're watching this video, today it's going to cost you about 55 cents to mail that same letter. How about a ticket to a movie? Back then, back in the 80s, watching Back to the Future, First Blood, Rambo, things like that, going to cost you $3.55. Now, depending on what part of the country you're in, it's $9 or a whole lot more. You take your kids, you buy popcorn, Coke, candy bar. You're looking at $30 or more. Honda Accord back in the mid 80s, that at that time that was probably the most popular car. It base price was roughly about $8,800. Today, if you can find one, they're $25,000 or more. So let's talk a little bit about the human nature of this whole concept, because it really seems like kids grasp this whole concept of the time value of money much better than we do as adults. If you don't believe me, do me a favor, try asking one of your kids, or if you have a kid that happens to be walking by, pull out $100 bill. Say, hey kid, would you rather have this $100 bill now, or instead I'll pay you 10% interest on this $100 and I'll give you that will be $110, but I'll give it to you a year later. Now think about that. How many kids that were given that scenario or that proposition that would take the $100 now or the $110 later? I think that you know the answer. You know, most of them would want it now. And I think that many savvy investors are really starting to grasp this concept as well and changing the way that they invest. So instead of people, socking away all this money that's going to be locked up in 401ks for 30, 40, or 50 years, what they're starting to do now is they're educating themselves more. They're starting to invest instead of the quote accumulation model that the financial advisors have been teaching us all along. Now, many of them, myself included, are shifting to investing for cash flow because we want the money now versus in the future. Why? Because myself and many others that I'm teaching this to, we all want options now, and we know that buying stuff is only going to keep becoming more and more expensive each year, right? Most of us, we rather have the money now rather than later. So let's talk about why this whole concept of the time value of money is so important. Now remember that inflation over time, it's going to increase prices, right? It's going to increase its prices over time. So every dollar that's in your pocket now, today, will buy more in the present than it will in the future. And what this is going to do, this is going to make investing even more important than you may or may not realize. So this time value of money, it helps in that it allows you to make the best decision about how to handle your money based mainly on three things. And again, we talked about inflation. So again, inflation causes the goods and services to continue to rise over time. And think about it, you can buy more with $100 now than you're probably going to be able to in 20 years, right? So money today has a higher purchasing power than it does 20, 30 years down the road. All right, what about risk? That's the second thing. Now, you understand that a lot can happen in the future, unforeseen circumstances, whatever. And, depending on what you put your money in, you may not get all of your money. You may not get any of it at all if you put your money into something over time. But with risk, you can actually lower your risk basically down to zero if you're paid and you get paid today or as quickly as possible instead of letting it ride out 5 years, 10 years or more. And the third thing is investment opportunities. Now, there are a lot of ways that you can make your money grow today, such as with real estate investing. But if you wait 10 years to receive your money, what's going to happen? You may miss out on or losing the opportunity to invest. Perfect example is the pandemic in the 2020 that happened 2020, the spring of 2020. People that had a lot of cash on the sidelines, well, they were able to take advantage of a lot of the real estate prices going down, a lot of the stocks in the stock market going down, versus people that had their money locked up in accounts that they couldn't touch for 30 years or more. They weren't able to take advantage of these investment opportunities. So what about why is the time value of money so important when it comes to real estate investing? And real estate investors, they're able to use this concept to help them to determine regarding the cash flow, what future cash flow from a real estate investment is going to be worth in today's dollars. And it's also going to help to determine whether you're better off using your cash now for something. Maybe you're going to rehab something, or you may want to borrow money, or you may want to conserve cash for another purpose. It's up to you. All right, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about something that more than likely that you're familiar with, and that is compound interest. Now, even though we know that the time value of money teaches us, again, that money is worth more today than in the future, so sometimes we think, well, we should spend it now versus save it for later. We also know that sometimes this isn't the case. Now, remember, while inflation works against you, it's eating away at the value of the dollars that are in your pocket. On the flip side, compound interest actually works for you in your favor to raise the value of your present dollar tomorrow. So, what exactly is compound interest? Well, compound interest is simply you're earning interest on your interest. So, in other words, it works by calculating the interest on your entire account balance that you have, which also includes, as the years go by, the interest that's being accrued. Here's a very simple example for you. So let's say that you got $1,000 and you want to put it into something for 5 years, and in 5 years you're going to earn 10% interest each year. All right. So after year number one, 10%, you've earned a hundred bucks, right? So at the end of year number one, you'll have $1,100. So in the year two, something happens. It starts to pick up a little bit because, again, remember, you're earning interest on the total amount from the previous compounding period, which is going to be the $1,100, right? So that was the original $1,000 plus the $110 that you got in interest. And and then at the end of year two, you've got $1,210. So if you keep going, you go all the way out to the 5 years. At the end of 5 years, you'll have $1,610. Now you might be saying, "Well, Jeff, that's $1,610. That's not that big of a deal." Well, how about if you started off with add a couple of zeros to it or three zeros? So instead of $1,000,000, now you've got $1.6 million. So again, that shows you what the power of compound interest. So you're looking at it from a different point of view as well. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the time value of money formula. So now that we have talked about and learned and recapped a little bit about what compound interest is, let's shift gears back to the time value of money, specifically the formula. And there's a specific formula that allows us to measure it. So we do so by this really complicated formula right here. And basically, I've just written it out. Tells you what each of these items means. The present value. If you want to figure out the present value of your money, you've got the future value, and you've got all the other things as well. And there's several online calculators that you can go in and it's free. You can plug in your numbers or whatever. But you may be thinking, well, why do I need to use this? Why do I need even to figure out anything in this complex formula? Well, it may help you answer questions, regarding as you get older and your life changes. And I always tell people that I have phone calls with that, especially the people with young kids, they think they all have it figured out. Oh, this is going to happen. Oh, yeah, in 5 years, this is going to happen. And by the time my kids are in high school, this is going to happen. But I tell them, based on my experience, probably about every 4 to 5 years, what you think in your life, especially when you have kids, it completely changes. So you typically what we do is we take and look at our financial goals in about 4 to 5 year periods. And then we shoot for that. If we can accomplish them earlier, great. Then we move on to the next one. So a few questions would be, how much would I need to save beginning today? Let's say you wanted to be a millionaire. So let's say you wanted to be a millionaire 20 years from now, and you're assuming a 7% growth after inflation. So you could actually go in, again, you could handwrite out this formula if you wanted to, but again, you use an online calculator. Um, you can use it to, you have any anticipated costs coming up, like, bigger costs like colleges, if you're thinking about purchasing a home, wedding, vehicle purchases, anything like that. Another question that you may need help with. So you may say, well, okay, if I start off and I open an account today, and my account balance is, of course, zero, and I put in so much a month. Let's say I put in $500 a month. What am I going to have 10 years from now if I can get like a 6% growth rate after inflation? Again, doing these things, this kind of helps put you in the starting direction. Another good thing to do is get your kids involved and get them excited about this. Use the online calculators for that. maybe start a little account for them. My kids are teenagers now, so now they know that every time they get paid, they're allowed to spend some. They're allowed to then we want them to give, either help people or to the church, or and then also save. So every time they get money, they're doing that. But when you get them involved with the saving part, then they can plug in these formulas and see what they'd have in 5 years, 10 years, or whatever. So now that we've discussed all this, hopefully that you'll understand the really the importance of the time value of money. And it tells us again that money we have now doesn't have the same value as it does in the future. And again, by knowing this, hopefully, whenever you start making your financial decisions, we're able to set goals by making choices that are going to affect your financial life. All right, so now that you've come to realize the importance of the time value of money, and that it tells us that the money we have now, of course, doesn't have the same value as it's going to have in the future. So by knowing all this and going over this and educating yourself, you're now able to make to make better decisions and set goals moving forward, which are going to affect your financial life. Speaking of goals and moving forward, a lot of times, sometimes people that start off on this making goals, one of their main goals is to become a millionaire. So what I've done is I've put together something just for you right over here, and that will allow you to get on the fast track to becoming a millionaire. Check out the video right here. Take care.